Let's talk grains. I want to begin with wheat, and then we can get into the bean and corn a little bit, because wheat seemed to take the biggest hit this year. February was not a good month for wheat. Talk to us about what's been behind some of the selling.
Yeah, good morning, Ben. What's really happening in the wheat market is we've had trying to find a price level in late demand. 4 or 5 years ago, our U.S. wheat prices used to be kind of the leader as far as world export business, and right now Russia's over as far as where most of the world buys their wheat from. Russia has expanded their wheat planted acres by more than double in the last 10 years. And so to compensate with that, U.S. farmers have pulled back on planting U.S. wheat and switched to other grains such as corn and soybeans. But we have been a massive producer of wheat in the last couple of years, despite the fact that we're planting less acres, and that has just created a stockpile. So you can see, as you mentioned in the chart there, we had a pretty good rally last fall when U.S. prices or wheat was being seeded in the southern plains in Kansas and Oklahoma, Nebraska, Texas. All that winter wheat in the ground went into the ground at some pretty decent moisture levels, and prices pulled back during that time frame. And since then, we've been trying to find that level that's going to stimulate some demand for our U.S. wheat, and we're just going to find that level. We finally have, with prices plummeting pretty much way through January, February, and into early March. Now we've kind of stabilized the wheat market, but we really just are building up our balance sheets. Tomorrow's report is going to show U.S. wheat stock balance sheets over 1 billion bushels, and going back to history, only in 1988-89 had we had any stock in the United States over 1 billion bushels. However, in the last 3 years, we've done that each year, and it's just a situation that we just have so much supply around the world, and here in the U.S. that we just don't home or we have seen some sales to Egypt and some other countries, but not enough to chew through these big, massive supplies of wheat.
And I'm hearing a lot about the supply. I'd imagine that some of the demand has been chewing through some of that supply. Otherwise, we wouldn't see prices, being supported at least to the extent that they have.
Right. We finally price level after prices moved down into the low 430 area for Kansas City wheat. That's our hard red contract. That's the one that we export the majority of our wheat on. And that finally was a price level that attracted world demand. We have a disadvantage because we have to ship our wheat across the Atlantic Ocean, and so you have to include freight costs in there. So it makes it a little bit more difficult for U.S. wheat to find this price level. And there's a chart that shows, 30s were that area where we kind of stabilized prices and started to move higher. Yeah. And we also have a little bit of concerns about the winter wheat crop that's breaking dormancy right now. Not so much in Kansas and Texas, Oklahoma. That crop looks real good, but it's in southern Illinois and Indiana, Ohio. The soft red wheat, that's the Chicago variety. That crop has had extremely wet conditions and less planted acres over the last couple of years, and so we're starting to put a premium in of Chicago versus Kansas City, Chicago versus Minneapolis, and that's helped to rally prices as well.
All right, Brian, let's look at wheat. Let's talk a little bit about corn and beans and what you're expecting to see from the report.
Okay, so we just had a quarterly stocks and acreage report at the end of March 29th was that report date, and that found a supply of corn, just increase in quarterly history of corn, about 270 million bushels. And that is going to show up in tomorrow's balance sheet, though USDA will allocate that as carry-in stocks for corn. And that means we're going to have more bushels to work with to chew through it. And that's been a real problem here for the last several years for corn and wheat. We just have too much supply. We're going to look at probably close to 2 billion bushels carryover for corn market because ethanol has been very slow. Our demand has been okay as far as exports, but feed usage and ethanol usage have been slow. And that is going to show up in tomorrow's balance sheet. So we expect to see corn ending stock near 2 billion bushels for old crop. We don't have any updates tomorrow for new crop corn or soybean ending stock. USDA waits until May to give us that information after the crop has been planted. But for tomorrow's ending stock numbers, we're looking at close to 900 billion bushels of soybeans. At this time a year ago, we were looking at about 438 million bushels. So it's just a big supply of corn and of soybeans. Wheat. It's kind of a depressing time frame for farmers right now.
Brian, let's talk a little bit about beans, because here on the show we talk a lot about indices and the bid that we've seen associated with optimism with U.S.-China trade talks progressing. We saw beans test that 925 level multiple times, December, January, February, on optimism to trade. But unlike the indices, the beans have struggled to get anything going with any real follow-through, any real type breakout. What's holding them back at this 925 level? Do they need something a little bit more definitive, aside from just kind of the hopium or the news headlines that we've been receiving as far as trade talks?
Yeah, the trade have been ongoing for a year now. It was last Friday, which first threatened to put some tariffs against U.S. products. So it's been ongoing for quite some time. And we had thought maybe we'd get an agreement during the fall time frame, because that's when China would normally buy as many soybeans as they possibly can from the United States. And there's really no other countries for China to go to for soybeans, but they had African swine fever. They had to eradicate a tremendous amount of livestock, especially hogs that would eat soybean meal, and so they have not had to buy as many soybean products from the U.S. or from any other country for that matter as what previously thought. So we've been kind of just real stagnant, real sideways type pattern with the market hoping that we would get some news with an agreement with China, because that would certainly be a bullish factor for soybean prices if we can see a major amount of soybeans being sold. Otherwise, our demand has been kind of soft. 900 million bushels of stocks of soybeans. A year ago, we had around 430 million, so more than double at any time in history that we've had of stocks on hand. We have a real issue if we get an agreement worked out with China relatively soon. We could see soybean prices move sharply lower at some point during the spring, because right now Argentina and Brazil are both harvesting their soybean crops. Argentina crop is reported to be much larger than what we had expected to see back in December and January. And if that happens, the future market is likely to start moving lower to sharply lower, as China is going to buy from Argentina, and they'll likely not buy any soybeans from us until the trade agreement worked out.